So let me ask you a question real quick. How many of y'all have ever been in the elevator and someone in the elevator decided to sneeze, but they didn't cover their nose or their mouth, and all that spit and snot just got not only on them, but it got on everybody in the elevator? Have you ever thought to yourself, like, what if that person had some type of virus or disease? So now, since they sneezed in the elevator, not only do that person have the disease or that virus, but they spread it to everyone in the elevator. And 9 out of 10, when the people in the elevator, when they exit the elevator, they're gonna go and be in contact with some other people, not knowing that they just caught this virus or disease from the individual from the elevator. So they may come see their friend and may give them a hug or a high five or whatever the case may be. So now that person now had a disease or that virus. All right, so there are 2 words that basically can illustrate or explain how these viruses and disease can spread from different people to different people, or it can impact a small community or a whole continent. So the 2 words are going to be pandemic and epidemic. So today, by the end of the class, you will be able to explain the difference between a pandemic and epidemic virus by giving a real world example for each. So what I want you to do right now is, when I say go, I want you to talk to your elbow partner about what it is that you're going to be learning today. Ready? Go. All right. So again, those 2 words, epidemic and pandemic, both of them have to do with the spread of a disease or a virus. So what I'm going to do is I've created these 2 Frail models for you. One for pandemic, which basically outlines the definition. It gives you examples, non-examples, as well as causes of this particular spread of the disease. And I did the same thing for epidemic. So I'm going to take about 2 minutes just to explain the 2 to everybody. And in that 2 minutes, I just want you to listen. I don't want you to write anything. Because after I explain these 2, I'm going to give you some time to discuss what you've heard to your elbow partner. So let's keep in mind that same situation in the elevator. You're in the elevator, going to the top floor. It's about 5 of you guys on the elevator. Then someone decides to sneeze and spread that virus or that bacteria to everyone in the elevator. If that individual decides to, touch everybody on the elevator, and those individuals decide to touch everybody else in that hotel, so everybody in the hotel now has that disease, bacteria, or virus, that is called a epidemic. An epidemic is an infectious disease that spreads rapidly to many people. So it went from 5 to about 100. Let's say 100 people in the hotel. So 5 people, 1 person had that disease or virus. It spread from 1 to 5 to 100 within a couple of days. Again, rapidly to many people. An epidemic. Some examples: SARS, smallpox, large, and localized. What I mean by local, we're talking about a group of people who's in a short distance from each other. Let's say Ransom, for example. That can be a localized population of scholars. So if everybody at Ransom was to get SARS, that can be considered a epidemic. Pandemic, basically the same thing, but it's going to affect a larger group of people. So let's say those individuals now who has that virus or disease in a hotel, who may be visiting Charlotte, for a weekend, all of them get on a plane and go in their separate locations with the same virus or disease. Now they're going to spread it to the location in which they go. So not only do the people in that hotel has a disease, but let's say some decide to go to the continent of Africa or Asia or South America. Now everybody in those continents now has that disease. And that is called a pandemic. And a pandemic is an infectious disease that spread globally. So think about a large scale. So let's use Ransom as an example. If everybody at Ransom has a disease, that's considered a epidemic. But if everybody in Charlotte has a disease, that'll be considered a pandemic. Any questions? So when I say go, I want you to discuss with your elbow partner what you understand about the word pandemic and epidemic, and I want everybody, every group, to come up with one question that they still may have about the two. Ready? Go. Now that we went over the two words, epidemic, smaller scale, pandemic, larger scale, we want to put this knowledge to practice. So what's going to happen is each group is going to be given these three headings. One that says epidemic, one that says pandemic, and another one that says both. And what I want you guys to do is you're going to place these three headings on your table. And then you're going to look at these 9 different scenarios or different situations or topics, and you're going to determine where they best land in your Venn diagram. If you feel as though this situation is basically talking about a pandemic, put it in the pandemic column. If you decide that it goes best with both pandemic and epidemic, put them in the both column. And if you think it's just an epidemic, put it in the epidemic column. Let me get one volunteer to explain to me exactly what it is you want to do. Everybody has a clear understanding. We're going to do the one together as a class. So let's choose this one. It says, affects a continent. So if a continent is affected by this particular disease or a virus, is that considered a pandemic, epidemic, or both? When I say go, if you think that a disease affecting a continent is considered a pandemic, I want you to put up the number 1. If you think a virus affecting a continent is an epidemic, I want you to put up the number 2. And if you think a virus affecting a continent is both a pandemic and epidemic, put up a number 3. So again, pandemic 1, epidemic 2, both 3. And I need 100% participation from everybody in the room. Ready, go. Good job. So again, I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. And at 5 minutes, I need you to complete the other 8 strips that you have. And as you complete the 8 strips, I'm going to come around just to gauge in conversation to make sure that everybody's on the right track. Or if anybody have any questions or still have any misconceptions or misunderstandings, I'll be here to help you. As well as you are allowed to use and utilize your 2 Frayer models as support tools if you have any questions. And also use your elbow partner. So you have 2 tools that you can use before you need myself as help. You have your elbow partner and you have your 2 Frayer models. 5 minutes on the clock. When I say go, you can begin. Ready, go. Great job. I love the conversation that I was hearing from the groups. I appreciate everybody, 100% participation from every group. But now it's time for us to put those Venn diagrams, those Freya models, and our dialogue and conversations from our group. We're going to put them to action. This next activity, I want to see how well you can do this independently. So that means you're going to do this by yourself, but you are allowed to use your Venn diagram and your Freya models. But this time you're not allowed to use your elbow partner, because I want you to see how well you can put the things that we just taught into practice. So what you're going to do is, I have this scenario that I will read to you in a few minutes. And I want you to answer the question at the very bottom of the scenario. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes. That first 2 minutes, I want it to be completely silent. The only thing that I should hear or see is your brain muscles turning. After that 2 minutes, I will give you a warning, let you know your 2 minutes is up. Then I allow the last 2 minutes for you to have dialogue with your classmates. Several people contract the same flu-like symptoms in a particular city. Other cases with the same symptoms show up across the state, but the concentration remains localized in a few original cities. Some cases turn up elsewhere in the nation, but does not catch on everywhere. In the cities where the flu-like symptoms rate remains more than you would expect to normally see, will be an example of an epidemic. How could this scenario turn into a pandemic? So we know it's an epidemic by the scenario I just read. But my task for you is, I want you to tell me how you can turn this, how can this scenario turn into a pandemic? So again, you have 4 minutes on the clock. First 2 minutes completely silent, everybody working hard and diligently. Again, you can use your Venn diagram and your Freya models. After the 2 minutes up, I'll give you 2 minutes to have a conversation with your elbow partner. Ready, go. Alright, so as a whole group, let's have a group discussion about how we can change this scenario from an epidemic to a pandemic. Alright, we have 5 minutes remaining left in class, and I want to take this last 5 minutes just to give you an exit ticket so that I can get a better gauge on how well you fully understand the difference between pandemic and epidemic. It's just 4 multiple choice questions. My expectation is that everybody complete these four exit tickets, or these 4 multiple choice questions, quietly at their seat. When you're done, you're going to raise your sheet up. I'm going to take it. Once I take it from you, you're going to get out your swag pass and wait quietly. Again, after you finish your 4 multiple choice question, raise in the air. When I come and get it, get out your swag pass and wait quietly. So the 4 questions are: the first one, what is a major difference between an epidemic and a pandemic? Number 2, defining an outbreak as an epidemic or pandemic is dependent on. Number 3, which has made the possibility of an epidemic becoming a pandemic much more likely in the 21st century? And number 4, if a disease simultaneously affects persons of several countries or continents and infects them in numbers in clear excess of normalcy, the disease is said to be. So those 4 questions are your exit tickets. Again, when you're finished, hold it up. I will come and get it and take out your exit ticket and take out your swag pass.